unit number 4 of Python functions, modules, and packages. So firstly, we'll start with functions. So let's see what are user-defined functions. Okay. So a function is a set of statements that can be reused whenever called, or sometimes we create functions to divide business logic into small, manageable code to reduce the complexity. Now, you already studied about functions in C, C++, and Java. So we're going to study the same functions in Python. I've already taught you this in class. So you already are familiar with the function definition, function calls. So we'll just go through them once. So now function definition is the definition of the function where we define what actually the function is going to do. So for that we use the keyword def, that is def. So the syntax is def space the function name followed by parenthesis and followed by a colon. So for example, over here you can see in this block print hello 1. So that would be your print statement. Now if you want to convert that into a function, you will just write def say hello brackets followed by a colon, and inside that if you write, that will be the statement inside the function. So def say hello print hello 3 and print hello 4. So this will be inside the function. Now you have to maintain the indentation whenever you're writing some statements inside the function. Otherwise, if you don't maintain that indentation, Python will not understand that whatever you're writing is supposed to be inside the function, out of the function, right? So here you can see a next example. You have def say hello, and you're writing print hello all from Python. Again, you have another function called as operations. So you have def operations print enter two values, a equal to int input and b equal to int input. So you're taking two inputs into a and b, and after that you're calculating the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and remainder using both of those variables. Again, you have another function named check even odd, in which now you can see the indentation more properly in these two functions. So you have your def check even odd. Under that, you have print enter a number. So you take the input into num. So num int input. So you take the input as a integer number into the variable called as num. Now, if num mod 2 is equal to 0, so you're checking whether it is. Even. So if it is even, you'll print num is even, else num is odd. Okay, so we've already done this part in class, that's why I'm just rushing through it. Next, function call is basically when you're supposed to call a function from some other part in the program. So, for example, suppose you have another function called as say hello, which prints hello all from Python. Then you have another function called as def operations, print enter two values. So you take two values as input, a and b. Then you're again calculating addition, subtraction, the same code again. And then again you're calculating even odd. For that again you're taking a number as input and then calculating whether it is even or odd. Now over here, where your main area starts, over there, you're calling the function say hello by simply writing the function name followed by parenthesis, no colon, nothing. Okay, so say hello will call the function say hello, and then it will execute all the statements inside that function. Similarly, if you write down operations followed by the brackets, you call the function operations, which will calculate your addition, subtraction, everything. Again, if you want to call the function check even odd, you will just write the name of the function followed by the brackets, and then you'll call the function, and then the statements inside the function will get executed. So that is function calls. Next, moving to function arguments and parameter passing. Now you're already familiar with what do you mean by arguments or parameters. So basically, whenever you want to uh, pass some values into the function itself while calling the function, that will be the arguments or the parameters. So for example, we're taking the same example of check even odd. So the same example, but over here we are passing the number inside the bracket. So as an argument. So def check even odd bracket num. So num becomes your argument now, followed by colon. If num mod 2 is equal to 0, print num is even, else print num is odd. So that completes your function right there. Now you have to be very careful. Now, if you see, over here the indentations are wrong in the book. Else के nature you have your first print statement which has to be inside the else statement. So this indentation is right, but all of these statements below that should be below DEF. So you have to correct that indentation when you're typing your code. Okay, so print main area starts. Now you're calling this function check even odd. So in this function call, you will pass a number, whatever you want, inside the brackets. So that will be passed as an argument to your original function definition. So you over here we are passing the number 15. Here we are passing the number 20. Correct? Then main area ends. So this is how you pass an argument into your function call. Next. Now over here, now if while calling a function, if you pass incorrect number of arguments. So for example, if you're passing check even odd, bracket 15 comma 20. So what will happen is you will get an error which is type error. Now you'll get a type error because it only takes one argument, but you're giving the function two arguments. So the it gives a type error because either the number of arguments are wrong or even if you pass a different type of argument, or different data type of the argument, it will still give you an error. Okay, so next. Now what we're doing over here is now we're passing a sequence, an entire sequence as an argument. So you can pass list as an argument. You can pass dictionary as an argument, etc. So let's say So you're defining a function called as show list elements, and you're passing an argument A followed by colons. Next, print list contains, and inside that function again you're initializing I to 0. Now you have a while loop over here. While I is less than A dot underscore underscore len, underscore underscore. So that means till while I is less than the entire length of A. So A will be a list. So until the length of A is true, print at index I element is A of I, and then you're implementing I equal to I plus 1. So what we're going to do is basically, if you have a list, for example, we're having list 1, ls1. Inside that we have the elements 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So now what we'll do is we'll call the function and pass ls1 as an argument. So show list elements ls1. So that means we are passing this entire list as an argument to the function. So what will happen is you'll get the output is at index 0 element is 10, then at index 1 element is 20, and so on. So let's see the output. So here it is. So for list 1, at index 0 element is 10, at index 1 element is 20, and so on until the list of the length of the list is true. So you'll continue till index 4 and the last element, that is 50. So at index 4 the element will be 50, and similarly for the next list, that is ls2. So you can pass an entire list or any kind of a sequence as an argument as well. So next, um, now the function parameters that we have, any arguments in a function that we have, they don't have a data type. So it will automatically detect which data type you want to assume, right? So you can pass any kind of an argument inside a function. So any data type of an argument. So for example, here you have a function called as sample function, inside which you are passing an argument called as value. Now what function is going to do is just print the value and its type, its data type. So over here, if you can see the entire list of parameters that you have. So here you have an integer number, then you have float, boolean, string, again a string, then list, a tuple, and a dictionary. So whichever type of parameter you pass, it is still going to execute that function and going to print the value as received, then the value itself as parameter, and its type is its data type. So let's see the output. So here, receive 15 as parameter, and its type is class int, and so on. So that Means in Python, any kind of function that you use can have any type of parameter, does not depend on the data type of the parameter. So it's just going to detect the type of the parameter that you're passing, and it is going to use it inside the function itself. So next, okay, it's the same thing. Now next we have return statements. So just like in C, C++, and Java, you return something from a function. Similarly, we are going to see how we use a return statement in Python. Okay, so like other programming languages, Python also allows functions to allow return. The keyword return is used to return the value. However, it is not mandatory to have a return statement in every function. But if return statement is used, then it must be the last statement of the Python function. So this is a very important point. If you're using a return statement, then it should be the last statement inside the function, because a function is considered as terminated or end when return statement appears in a function. When a function returns a value, then that return value is received in a variable on the left side of the calling statement. So what you have to do is when you're calling a function that has a return statement, you also have to use a variable on the left hand side of a function. So for example, if you have a function called as check even odd, then you'll write suppose a equal to check even odd and brackets. Okay, so let's see an example. So here we are calculating factorial of a number. So DEF get factorial bracket num. So num is the parameter. Initializing f equal to 1, I equal to 1. While I is less than or equal to num, f equal to f into I and equal to I plus 1. So what you're doing is you're just calculating the factorial, and at the end of the function you're writing return f. So that means f will be returned wherever the function is getting called, right? So over here we're calling the function get factorial bracket 5. So that means 5 is the parameter, and then we're writing a variable f1 on the left hand side. So that means whatever the factorial will be calculated over here will get returned into f1. So then you can print factorial of 5 is f1. Okay, so that is how you use return statements. So just like C and C++. Okay. Now again, just like arguments in Python don't have a data type, similarly return statements also do not have a data type. So you can return any type of a variable or calculation through a Python return statement. So uh, in this example for addition function, you can see you have def addition x comma y, and you just simply return x plus y. So it does not matter if you're adding integer numbers, float numbers, or even string concatenation operations using the plus. So you can do any kind of operations. Okay. So now what we're checking over here is when you do not write a return statement, then what happens? That means if I have this function called as def say hello, I'm just using it to print hello, and then I'm just writing print main area starts to specify where the main function is starting. So if I write in the main function, I call the function called as say hello, and I still write a variable on the left hand side. That means when you have a return statement, that is the variable that the value should get stored in. But now we don't have a return statement. So what happens is it prints none, right? Because the return statement is not specified. So if you get a question or an MCQ, if you're going to solve ever, so what does a return statement return by default is none. Okay. Next, you can return multiple values using the return statements. So let's see how you can do that. Now we have a function called as square cube. So you're calculating square as well as a cube of a number. So that number is passed in the parameters. So you have two variables sq and cu for square and cube. So calculating square, you just write num into num, and for calculating cube, num into num into num. So now you want to return both of these calculated values. So you're going to just write down one statement, that is return sq comma cu. Now when you're returning two values from a function, you also need to receive it in two variables. So for that, you need over here when you're calling the function, that time you need to specify two variables s comma c. So the square will get it will save it into respective variables. So sq is the first one that you're returning, so it will get saved into s. Similarly, cu is the second one that you're returning, so it will get saved into c variable. So you can print it out as square is s and cube is c. So that is how you return multiple variables. Okay, next. So again, you can all return multiple types of data from a return statement. So for example, over here, if you can see, there's a function called a string operations, and s is your parameter. So s is basically some string that you've taken from the user. So you're creating s dot length. So a will have an integer value in which length of the string will be stored. B is going to have the zeroth element of string. That means it will have a character variable. C s of s dot length minus 1. That means it will have the last character of the string. D is going to have this colon minus 1. You've already studied that in the string operations, right? So again, it will have a string variable. And E is s dot is alpha. So it will have values in true or false. If it is alphabetic, it will have true, otherwise it will have false. So you can return different types of variables. So your return statement can return just one type of variable, or one type of data, or multiple data at once, or multiple data types at once. Okay, so next. So we will now move on to scope of variables. So you already know local variables and global variables. You've already studied that in C, C++, and Java. So we'll see about that in Python. Now, a variable declared inside of a function is a local variable, and the scope is of the local variable is within that of the function definition itself. But a variable that is declared outside the function definition is called as a global. Global variable, and it can be used anywhere in the code. So for example, if you write a equal to 10 at the beginning, it is a global variable. If you start defining a function called a sample function 1, and inside that if you write down b equal to 20, that becomes a local variable, and its scope will be inside this particular function 1 itself. So it cannot be used outside that function. Again, if you have another function called as sample function 2, and if you declare a variable called as c equal to 30, so it will be a local variable with a function scope inside function 2 itself, right? Next. Okay, so now functions with default arguments or functions with optional arguments. So let's see. So now we have a function called as def say hello, and inside the parameters, inside the brackets, we have the parameter called as name. But the only difference is we are writing name equal to everyone. Now this is written inside the bracket. So now whenever you write a value to a parameter inside the bracket itself, it becomes its default value. So inside the function, we are just printing whatever value we are getting from the variable name. So hello, comma name. Now you're calling the function twice. So first time when I'm calling the function, we're writing say hello. We're passing a name, Deepak. Okay, so this time when this function gets executed, name has already been assigned a value called as Deepak. So this default value gets overwritten, and then you'll get the output as hello Deepak. But the second time that you're calling this function, you're not specifying any other value. So what this function will do is it will use its default value, that is everyone. So the first line gives you this output, hello Deepak, and the second line gives you the default output, that is hello everyone. So that is how you use the default parameters. Okay, so we'll see in the next topic. Okay, so keyword arguments or KWARGs. This has already been done in class. I'll still go through it once. So now we are using keyword arguments. So let's see what that is. So keyword argument is an alternative way to make function calls and passing parameters to it. The keyword argument allows to pass the parameter irrespective of their order or sequence in function definition. That is, the the idea is to allow the user to specify parameter name with values so that the caller does not need to remember the order or the sequence in parameter function definition. So let's see what this means. So now we have a function called as sample function, and you have three parameters inside the function: para 1, para 2, and para 3. Now you're just printing out the values: parameter 1 received and its value, parameter 2 its value, parameter 3 and its value. So when you print, the sample function is called, and then you're calling the sample function and you're passing three values, right? Now note that the line 6 called sample function and three parameters are passed. In the above case, these three parameters will be assigned to para 1, para 2, and para 3 because they assign values according to the order and the sequence of the parameter definition, and therefore the order of the output will be so. That means when we are calling the function and we're assigning three values, that is 10, 74.11 and true. So 10 gets assigned to para 1, 74.11 to para 2, and true to para 3, because the sequence of the parameters that you're passing is decided according to the parameter names that you decided in the function definition, right? So you'll get the output accordingly. But you can do the same by assigning parameter name with the value. So that means when I'm calling the function, instead of just writing 10 comma 73.11 or whatever it is, I can specify which value I want to give to which variable. So when I'm calling the function sample underscore function, para 2 equal to 10, comma, para 3 equal to 74.11, and para 1 equal to 2. Doesn't matter what sequence I keep that in, as long as I've written the variable names correctly. So by doing this, you can actually assign the value to the variable that you want instead of the system deciding it by itself based on the sequence. So this is how you can do it. Okay, next, nested functions. So in Python, you can use something called as nested functions or inner functions. So that means a function inside a function. So just like you have your nested loops, similarly. So now over here we're defining a function called as outer, and we are passing an argument called as num1. Now inside that function, we're defining another function called as inner increment, and we're again passing it the same argument num1. Now inner increment is going to just increment the value and pass return num1 plus 1. So it has just increased the value of num1 by 1. And after that, now if you can see the indentation, you can notice that inner increment function has ended at the return statement itself, because the next statement has the same indentation as the function itself. So now num2 is equal to inner increment of num1. So that means now you're calling the function inner increment with the value of num1, and then you're printing num1 comma num2. So now for the time being, don't worry about what this program is doing. We don't care about that. We're just concerned about how inner functions how inner functions can be used. So basically what you're doing is you have an outer function. Now you want the inner function to do some other task, but it is still related to the outer function. So it's kind of like a main program, and inside that you're making a small method. So similarly, next. Okay, now one thing that you should notice over here is that the last line of this function is outer 15. That means you're calling the outer function, that is whose name is 15. So your function will go over here to the function definition of outer. You'll pass the argument as 15. Now that argument will not directly go into the definition of inner increment. No, that is just the definition. You have to encounter the function call of inner increment for it to execute, right? So you'll skip this statement. Now because you have skipped this statement, you will not go to the return statement either. You'll go directly to line number 3 over here. We'll go to num2 equal to inner increment of num1. Num1 was 15. So now you're calling the function inner increment with the value 15. Now you'll go to this function definition, and then it will return the value 15 plus 1. So num2 will now become 16, and then you'll print num1 comma num2, that is 15 comma 16. So your output will be 15 and 16, right? Now if you add another line out after this statement, after outer. Okay, let's just try it once. Wait. Can you see the screen? Someone give a confirmation. Can you see what is being written on the black screen? Can someone please switch on the mic and tell me if you can see this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you can read everything because it's small, but try.
No, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay. Okay, so we're just executing the same program. What happened? Invalid syntax. Why? क्या रहेगा? Not defined. Okay, never mind. So basically what we're trying to do is, if you add another line over here after outer 15 and you call it inner increment and bracket me, if you pass some other number, then you're going to get an error. Okay, and that error will be a name error because it will say inner increment is not defined. Okay, so basically what is going to happen is, because inner increment is an internal function or a nested function, you cannot access it directly, or you cannot place a function call directly, right? So for that, you will have to access it through the function outer. So I'm not sure what happened over here. We'll see. Jay, can you see an error? Fine, sure. Okay, never mind. Okay, so we'll move on. So now we'll go to the next topic called as pass by value or pass by reference. Now you're already familiar with this. You've studied it in C, C++. So we'll see how this works in Python. So now pass by value and pass by reference. You already know if you pass by value, you're passing the actual value. So you're only passing the value. But if you're passing by reference, you're passing the address or the memory location of where the value is stored in the memory. So it actually gets changed in the memory, right? So let's see how it works in Python. Now you have a function called as update list, right? You're passing a variable called as ls, and then inside the function you're telling ls of 0 is 100. So basically you're replacing the first element of the list that you're passing to 100, right? Now you have now you finished with that function definition, so you're starting with the main program. So you initialize a variable called as list1 and give its values 10, 20, 30, 40. Now you're printing the initial list itself, so print initial list contains list1. Now you're calling the function update list and passing the entire list, list1, into the parameter. And then again, you're printing the updated list. Now what will happen over here is, now initially the list was 10, 20, 30, 40. And the updated list will be 100, 20, 30, 40. So that means your entire list that you passed has been updated because of your function, right? Now another example that that will use called by reference. The first one that we saw was called by value. Okay. Um, now over here you have the function update num. You're passing the variable num, and the value of num you're just going to update it to 100. Okay, so that is your function definition. Now when you start with your main function or your main part of your program, you're initializing a variable called as num and giving it in value of giving it a value of 10. Now you're printing initially num equal to num, and you're calling the function update num, passing the value 10, and then now you're going to print the new value of num. Okay, so let's see the output. Now here what is going to happen is, initially the value was 10 and the new value of num is still 10. So the value is not getting reflected or not getting changed, right? So why is that happening? Yes. Anyone?
Ma'am, because we have passed the value now in the definition.
The
We have some value in the function.
Right. So basically what is happening is, because you have the same variable names over here, because your variable called as num uh, is in your main function as well, and the variable num inside your function definition is also called as num. So what Python is going to do is, basically it is going to update the function that is inside the function definition itself. So it is not getting reference to the actual function, actual variable name that was inside your this main function where you actually initiated the function call. So where the num is getting updated only inside the function definition. So it will not get reflected into the main function. That is why you cannot see the reflected value. Okay. Next, variable length
Ma'am,
argument. Yes.
ma'am, what is the difference between value and pass?
Hello. Can't hear you.
Ma'am, what is pass by value and pass by reference?
That is what, no, when you call by value, the actual value, the actual this thing, the value of your inside the variable will get changed, but otherwise it won't get changed. The value of your variable that should be updated. So, for example, in the list example, the value of ls of 0 that got updated from 10 to 100, whereas in the second example that we saw for number, integer number, the value was initially 10, but then it did not get updated to 100. Is that understood?
Yes, ma'am.
So basically what Python does is it will apply call by reference by default to the past object, but it will apply call by value for single variable. So what we saw over here in the second example with the num or with the integer variable where there was only a single variable passed, that was call by value. And in the above example where we saw that the entire list was getting passed, that was call by reference. So Python will not let you choose between the two, but it will automatically decide whether to apply call by reference or call by value. So if you can read the statement over here. So Python applies call by reference to the past objects. So that means we had a list and it applied pass by or call by reference, because when you apply call by reference or pass by reference to any kind of a variable, what it does is it actually makes changes into the memory location where it was saved. So your updations will get reflected directly into your variable, right? But when you're passing a single variable, for example, in the second example with only a single integer value for num, that time it will automatically apply call by value and it will only pass a copy of your variable. So your actual variable value will not get changed. Right? Next. So now we're moving towards variable length arguments, wherein you can the length of your argument that you are passing into your function, that can be decided or that should not be static. So it has to be dynamic according to whatever the user wants or whatever you want to do in in consideration with your program. So let's see. So Python allows to have variable length arguments to a function where we can pass different numbers of arguments on each call. For example, let's just start with the example. So to use the variable length argument, you have to start the name of the variable with a star or name of the parameter with a star. So for example, we have a function called as print underscore name. So we're passing a parameter called as variable underscore args, but we're starting with a star. So you have star and then variable underscore arguments. So inside the function, what you're going to do is print. I've received so many variables and the length of the variables is this much. And then for val and variable r, you're just printing the values inside the inside whatever value we have passed as an argument, right? So now starting with the main code. So you're calling the function print underscore name. You're passing three values: Ravi, Yogesh, and Majita, whatever that is. Okay, so you're passing these three names into your function. Now what will happen is, let's go to the output. Let's see what happens. So it will print that variable arguments received is 3 arguments, and then it will just print all the 3 names, right? So it is going to accept anything that you pass. So it is considering all of these 3 names as different arguments because you've put a comma in between them. So you are basically passing 3 string values to your function, right? So Ravi, Yogesh, and whatever. So next, in the second function call, what you're doing is you're passing the same 3 names, but you're not separating them with a comma. You're just passing that as a single string variable, right? So let's see what happens then. So now in this case, variable arguments receive total 1 argument. So because you're not putting any commas in between, it is going to consider that as a single string. And when you try to print that string, you're going to get it in one single line because it is considering it as a single statement. Next, in the third function call, what you're doing is you're only passing print underscore name Ravi, comma M. That's it. So it will consider it as 2 arguments and it will print the 2 values Ravi and then second line M. Okay, that's it. So you can have variable lengths of your arguments depending on whatever you want. Okay. Next. Basically, where you use variable arguments is when you're not sure. Say, for example, something like if you want someone's address. So someone can write just address as just Pune. Someone can write, like Vishrantwadi, Pune, and maybe there's someone else who's writing it very detailed, like flat number this, gully number this, and so and so. So wherever you're not sure, whatever your length of your argument should be, at that time what you're going to do is you're going to use the variable arguments option, right? Now another thing which can be used, now see over here in this example, now over here you have again print underscore name function, but over here you're not using variable arguments for everything. Instead what you're doing is you're using a separate argument for prefix, separate one for city, age, right? So because these are the things that you're sure about, that this will not take much of memory space. It will only use some limited number of memory space. But in case of suppose say again address or something, you can use the star sign to specify your address. So you use the star wherever you're not sure of the length. Okay. Next. Okay, now here's some other program that is given as an example, and you have to guess what it is. Okay, so just read this program once. Is it visible properly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just go through it once. Okay, so basically we're using a function called a sample, and you're passing an argument, but now this argument has 2 stars in it, right? And then inside that function, what we are doing is we're just printing receive receive the following values, and then you're using a for loop to print all those values. Okay. Now, in the main function, what you're doing is you're calling the function sample, and you're passing different type of fields inside, right? And even the length of your arguments or the number of arguments is different in each call. So let's see the first one, the first function call. We're passing name equal to Ravi, age equal to 36, city equal to Aurangabad, right? So I have 3 arguments, but even while having 3 arguments, what you're doing is you're specifying that name is this, age is this, and city is this. That means you're passing 2 values at once. And which is the data type that has 2 values? It is dictionary. Okay, so dictionary has a value and an item and its value, okay. So what you're passing basically here is a dictionary. Again, in the second call, if you see, employee ID equal to this, employee name equal to this, post equal to this, salary equal to this. And then third function call, maths equal to this, physics equal to this, and so on, right? So basically you're passing a dictionary value to your function. So let's see. In this case, data type of variable args becomes dictionary, and hence we will get variable length and variable named arguments. Okay, so basically if you want to if you're not sure whatever type of information the user wants to enter or you want to enter, so at that time what you will do is you will create a dictionary by using double stars. So what will happen is you'll create a dictionary that has variable length as well as variable number of arguments. Okay, so this can be used in whichever situation it is needed. Next, moving to Python built-in functions. I think we've done this also in college, but we'll just go through it once. You have some built-in functions in Python. So we'll just read the name of the functions. The meaning you should be able to guess. Okay. So type, you already know, return the type of an object. ABS will return an absolute value. All will return all the items that are true. Callable will return a specified object that is callable. If it is callable, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. Any is instance ID has attributes. Then you have some data conversion functions that will convert your data implicitly. So bin, hex, oct, bool, char, float, int, list, string, etc. Then you have some input and output related functions. Input to take an input from the user, and print to print an output. Next, some file related functions. So open, complex, evaluate. Then some class and inheritance related methods, some mathematical functions, and help functions. Okay, I'm not going to read through all of them because we've already done this in the lectures. Okay, next, now data type and its object related functions. So now basically what you're going to study is all the data type related functions. So you already know the type function. It will just print the type of the variable. So data type of variable that you want, right? Next, ABS will print the absolute value. So absolute value, that means if it is a negative number, it will convert it into the the respective positive number. Next, all will print true if all the parameters have a Boolean value, otherwise it will return false. Okay. So basically, uh, if you have a number of lists, suppose you have 5 lists over here, and if you're returning, if you're initializing the list to certain number of values, now list 1 has some string values, empty strings, so it will return false because all will return true only if all the list elements are only true or false. So list 1 becomes true, list 2 becomes list 1 becomes false, list 2 becomes false, list 3, list 4, and list 5 will become true. Okay. Next. So all these are functions. I don't think I'll go through all of them. So we'll just go to the next topic. Is that okay with everyone? Do I need to read through them? Okay. So the next topic is Python modules. So a module is a file containing functions, classes, and global variables. A module can also include runnable code. Grouping related code into a module makes the code easier to understand and use it by simple import statements. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to save whatever codes you have. So for example, if you're writing a program to calculate a square of a number, so what you'll do is you'll just save it in a Python file with the extension .py, and then basically what you can do is you can import that square function or that entire program into some other program that you need to use, right? So importing the modules becomes easier. So just like you have packages in Java, same kind of functionality. Okay. So basically, what you're going to do is, suppose for example, if you have this function which is just calculating the addition, subtraction, multiplication and division and power of some two numbers x and y, and it is just going to return x plus y, x minus y, x into y, x divided by y, and x double star y. Double star is what? Raised to, right? So if you've created this program into some Python file, you will just save it into some Python file called as arithmetic underscore operations dot py. Okay, and then you want to use this entire code somewhere else in some other program, right? So what you'll need to do is you'll need to import this file into your other program. So what will happen is, look at the second example. So what will happen is, if you want to calculate the addition, subtraction, everything, all you'll need to do is just write a simple import statement. So how your import statement works is import space your file name. So what was our file name? Arithmetic underscore operations. So the same name we wrote over here. So import arithmetic operations, and then you can directly start calling the function itself. So what you need to do is the file name dot the function name. So over here in the above example, what we did was add, subtract, multiply, division, and power. So to use the addition method, what I'll need to do is arithmetic underscore operation dot add, and then pass two variables x and y. So it will calculate the value and it will return it through that addition function inside the file arithmetic underscore operations, right? So you got addition of 5 and 5 is 12. Okay, so this is how you can uh, reuse your code that you'd written somewhere else or some time before, right? So that is the advantages of modules. Now if you find repeating this entire name of the file arithmetic underscore operations, it becomes very lengthy to type, right? So you can rename your module while you're importing. Okay, so let's see how you can do that. So here's the syntax: import module name as alternative name. So what you'll do is import arithmetic underscore operations as a. So all you need to do is print, and then you can call the function directly a dot add and pass the two values. The same answer again. The addition of 5 is 10 and so on. Okay, so that is a way to make it easier or shorter. Okay, next, the from and import statement. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're basically only going to import certain functions that you want. So you're not going to import all the functions inside our program that we had, arithmetic operations. We're only going to import certain functions that we need in our new program. So what you can do is you can write from arithmetic underscore operations import mult. So I'm only importing the multiplication function. So I'll only use the multiplication function. Now in this case, I don't need to write down the name of the module again. So I don't need to write arithmetic underscore operation dot multiplication, because I'm only importing one single function. So there'll only be one mult, right? So that is again one more way that you can do it. Or you can import all the functions, but not by default. Earlier what we were doing, when you write only import module name, what you're doing is you're importing everything that is inside the module, but then what you need to do is again you need to write module name dot function name, module name dot function name. So to avoid that, what you can do is you can use syntax, that is from module name import star. So it will import all the functions and you don't have to write the dot thing, you don't have to use that again. So for example, from arithmetic operation import star, and then you can just simply use add xy, subtract xy, multiply xy, divide xy, etc. Okay, so this is an easier way to do that. Now, if you want to put multiple values, okay, so basically what you can do is you can import multiple values, whichever modules that you have in your basically your system. So you can just import multiple values, multiple modules at once. So you can just write multiple import statements if you want. Now Python also has some built-in modules. So let's go through them. Okay. So the 6 basic modules that we need in the category of numeric and mathematical modules are decimal, fractions, iter tools, math, operator, and random. So basically, decimal module is going to deal with the decimal numbers. So basically, all the floating point numbers and the integer numbers as well. Now, to do that, all you need to do is write one single line at the beginning of your program, that is import space decimal. You can start with the program. You can use uh, all the functions that are inside that module. Okay. So basically, you have the decimal function, then you have log10 function, etc. Okay. So basically, just go through these module once. Uh, then you have another module called as fractions. So basically, see now over here you can see in this example you're importing two different modules as we discussed. So you're importing fractions as well as you're importing decimals, and as well as while importing decimal, what you're doing is you're renaming it to DCML. Okay, so you can do multiple things at once. Now fractions, what it will do is it will deal with the fractional numbers, right? Okay, so if you want to print 1 by 2 into your output, all you need to do is import the module fraction and then call the fractions, fraction function, and you'll have to pass the two values 1 comma 2. So it will give you output as 1 by 2 and so on. Okay, so there are basically a couple of inbuilt modules in Python. I think we've done this also in class, so I'll just read the names of the modules and you can go through the examples on your own. Okay, then you have math module. So math module will have pi function, e function, then is NaN, that is not a number, etc. There will be a lot of functions. You will not need all the functions, but all you need to do for your exams is just remember the module names and some 3 to 4 functions associated with it. So that should be enough. Okay, so that is math module. Then you have operator module. So operator module is going to just to check using, so it has some functions called addition, subtraction, contains, and so on. Then you have then in functional programming module you have map function, filter function, reduce function, lambda function, and so on. Okay, so we don't need to study all of this in detail. So I'll just ask you to just go through it once and just study 3 or 4 functions inside each. Okay, so the next topic, names, uh, namespace and scope. Yeah. So you're already aware with the namespaces and scopes, public scope, private scope, and all this. So we'll just go through them once. Okay. So namespace is a simple system to control the names in a program so that it remains unique and there is no ambiguity in them. So there are basically 3 namespaces: local, global, and built-in. So let's see. The built-in namespace, it covers the built-in functions and built-in exception names. And Python creates it as the interpreter starts and it keeps it until the program execution ends. Now the global namespace is a namespace that covers the names from various imported modules in the current program. Python creates this namespace for every module included in our program. It will last until the program execution ends, and the local namespace will cover all the local names inside a function. So basically what you're going to have is, if you have a program and you're using some kind of keywords in the program, so that will be the built-in namespace where you can, where Python will keep a track of all the keywords that you're using. So that is a built-in namespace. Now, if you're using some global, if you're importing some kind of a module inside your program, so that will go under global namespace because that is going to be, not limited to only your program. It is being imported from somewhere else. So that will be remaining in the global namespace. Now, if you're creating some local variables or local function names inside your program, that will remain under the local namespace. So the scope of that will be only till your program or your function is there. And all of these namespaces are active only till the program execution ends. After that, it becomes inactive. But even for local namespace is only active till your function ends, function execution. After that, there is no scope. Okay. So now Python packages. Uh, Now, whenever you want to create a package in Python, it must be in the file name underscore underscore init underscore underscore dot py. Okay, and then you can start writing your packages. So now, if you want to create a package, first of all, you will need a separate directory, which will be the name of the package, which will contain the underscore init underscore dot py file. This file can be empty or it can be with the open code that will be executed immediately whenever this package is imported. Or you can write individual import statements to decide the availability or accessibility of modules and member of modules. So if you're using PyCharm IDE, there are some steps that you need to follow to create the modules. Okay, so basically what you're going to do is you'll create a new project, then you'll create the project title, new, and Python package. Okay, so there is directly an option to create the Python package. Now in this, you'll get an option. See, like you can see over here. So you'll enter the name of your package and click on OK. After that, Into step 3, it will create a specified package in the project directory with double underscore initialization underscore dot py file. So you can see the file over here. Inside test package, you have the initialization file. Next, if you could double click on it and you can write the code. Now, if you want, you can keep that empty. If you want to do something else or you want to add another file, you can just right click on the test package, new, and then you can click on Python file. Okay, and then you can type your code in that. So you'll create a new Python package. And then in that package, see, they've created two modules, module 1 and module 2 dot py. And then you can use those modules anywhere that you want. So the code, this is for module 1 and this is for module 2. And then you can use that package anywhere you want. Okay. So now over here in this file, what they're doing is importing both of the modules that they created and then using it for a third file, then just executing the entire code. Okay, that's it. So you can even use user defined packages. I think you've already heard about NumPy. You can install NumPy into your system, maybe Windows or Linux. So if you're using Linux, you can install it using pip install NumPy. You can do the same for Windows. Or you can use these some other packages or modules called as Math, SciPy, NumPy, Matplotlib, Pandas, etc. So you can use all of these packages. And then using these packages, you can import whatever functions they provide to do the various kind of operations on your data. So depending on your program, you can import all of these modules and all of these packages inside your program. Okay. So basically, if you look at the questions inside your Google assignment or even over here in the can I say inside your textbook, so you can see their basic kind of questions. So there's nothing that is very complicated. They're all very straightforward. So it should be easy for you, at least now, I think. To the only question that is a bit complicated, I think, are these last three questions, where you have to use the modules to create, bar chart and everything. But those are only a few limited questions, so it should not be hard for you to find the answers. And once you find the answers, just keep the reason I'm asking you to type all of your Google assignments is that at least you'll have them somewhere on your Google Drive, so that the next time that you need to study for your exams, you can just refer your Google Drive and then you can study from there. Because your notebooks, I know you'll just lose them after a week or so. Okay, I'll just stop the recording, and if anyone has any doubts, you can ask.